The building, the equipment, the furniture makes things nice, but it's not the number one issue. The connection to our care providers is still the reason people choose Reid and why they come back.
To the people of Richmond and Wayne County, they have had such ownership of Reid Health all of its years. Impression of neighbors taking care of neighbors is very much a part of the fabric and the culture here.
Just as a family grows, so does the surrounding community. The same is also true of the hospital that serves them. The history of the past century has been a story of the relationship between Reid Health and the Richmond-Wayne County region. In fact, it is difficult to imagine East Central Indiana and West Central Ohio without this full-service not-for-profit hospital, or for that matter, Reid, without the generous support of the community's donors and volunteers. For more than 100 years, Richmond and Reid have both faced challenges, grown and thrived, and they have done so together. With new industries springing up in Richmond and surrounding towns, the region was growing rapidly. Between 1890 and 1900, the population grew by 1/3 to 18,000 people. The threat of tuberculosis and other serious healthcare challenges were also growing. By the turn of the century, St. Stephen's, the modest 9-bed hospital that existed at the time, was turning away an average of 50 patients per week. A group of 10 community leaders convened at the Westcott Hotel and agreed on the need for a full-scale hospital to serve the area. Local entrepreneur Daniel G. Reid donated $130,000 to the effort in honor of his wife and son, who had both died a few years earlier. With this, planners purchased the old John F. Miller Estate, a tract of land north of the Whitewater River, and construction began. When the hospital opened its doors in July of 1905, it was said to have been the most modern and beautiful hospital in the region, featuring 75 inpatient beds and a horse-drawn ambulance. Also on hand at the hospital's inception was a small ginkgo tree outside the entrance, no larger than a broomstick. Over the decades, the tree grew to become a beloved symbol of the hospital and its mission. As the practice of medicine progressed in the hospital's early years, there came increased pressure to improve the quality of care. In 1910, a federal report called for stricter requirements and better education for medical personnel. One of the biggest healthcare problems at the time was an acute shortage of nurses, as well as the schools to train them. In much the same way that Reid was built in order to address the growing health needs of the local community, the hospital itself now turned its attention to the medical community, hosting a school of nursing on the Reid campus and eventually building a residence hall to house them in 1928. Throughout the decades, hundreds of women came to Reid to learn how to save lives and ease pain, taking their knowledge with them to hospitals throughout the state, nation, and even right here in Richmond. Almost as soon as it opened, Reid Hospital was struggling to keep pace with the growing healthcare needs of the region. By 1920, Richmond's population had increased to 30,000, creating an urgent need for more capacity. Hospital board members made the decision to add capacity, resulting in the F Wing in 1928. Within just a few years, demand for hospital services had risen 300%. And in the period following the Second World War, the rapid growth of the region continued to push the hospital to its limits. In 1950, Board Chairman William Reller organized a fundraising campaign to facilitate what became the B Wing, completed in 1953. Again, population growth and advancements in medicine continued apace, necessitating the construction of the 144-bed H Wing in 1958, which became known as the Reller Wing. Behind every improvement and every expansion, there remained a single purpose: to bring the best health care possible to the people of Richmond and Wayne County. There would soon come a day when this mission would be put to the test. It was a quiet Saturday afternoon in downtown Richmond. At 1:45 p.m., an explosion, apparently caused by a gas leak, ripped through the block of buildings, setting off an intense fire that ignited a large quantity of ammunition stored at the Marting Arms Sports Goods store at 6th and Main. 41 people died that day, and scores were injured in the fires and by flying glass. Within 2 hours of the explosion, more than 100 blood donors had volunteered. Physicians from surrounding towns also poured in to do their part. Over the next 2 days, Reid treated 116 patients. Every one of them survived. As the years passed, Reid's reputation for excellence drew patients from miles around, further straining the hospital's resources. Sensing the need to unite the piecemeal structures in a new hospital core, board members once again appealed to the community. With the help of donors large and small, the money was raised in just a few months, and the impressive Leeds Tower and service shelf was complete in 1973. Expansions continued during the 1980s, as the hospital tripled its outpatient surgery capacity in response to changing patient needs. Even more important than the physical structure, in recent decades, Reid expanded its services as well. Committed to remaining a full-service hospital, Reid has expanded its emergency services, added advanced radiology, and a state-of-the-art heart services program.
Many years ago, the cardiac cath program was our lead for heart services. That has quickly expanded into full cardiac surgery, whether that's diagnostic work, surgical work, or post-surgical recovery work. We do all of that here and do as well or better than the tertiary care hospitals around us.
It's something we have known and certainly grown from in our local environment, but now as that reaches regionally, we're developing new relationships with new friends, new families, new patients.
At the turn of the new century, the medical environment had changed a great deal. The average lifespan had more than doubled since Reid opened its doors in 1905, and in response, the institution has grown from a small town hospital into a major medical center, the area's largest employer with a staff of over 2,600. In order to adapt to these new demands, the hospital governing board unanimously approved a plan to construct a brand new facility, a new Reid. Once again, the hospital called out to the community for support, and once again they responded.
When we began the journey of designing a replacement facility, it was automatic for us to invite the community into that process. Many focus groups, many community forums, many points of decision, so the community had some genuine input into the design and development of this facility.
The result is a world-class facility capable of serving the region's healthcare needs for today and for years to come. As construction of the new facility came to a close in summer 2008, the entire hospital geared up for the exciting task of relocating from the original hospital to the new address at 1100 Reid Parkway. Over 4 years of planning helped to ensure that moving day went along like clockwork, and it certainly did. A team of Reid staff and volunteers, with the help of 10 ambulances, transported the entire patient population, all 91 patients, to the new hospital in just under 4 hours. Unneeded items from the original building were auctioned off, with the proceeds benefiting the Hospital Foundation and other local not-for-profits. In keeping with tradition, hospital administrators planted a new ginkgo tree outside the main entrance, continuing to serve as a reminder of the hospital's mission, established so many years ago.
When you go back and look at the history of Reid, Reid was largely driven by volunteers. Over time, our needs changed, but what didn't change is our reliance upon the community support. We have one of the largest volunteer corps within the state of Indiana, and that's because this community has continued to give back in a tradition that goes back over 100 years to provide services for their fellow citizens.
I know every hospital in the country would say we're different, but I mean it. This place is different. We care about each other. We care about the patients. We care about their families. We sometimes don't recognize or acknowledge that internally, but externally, when someone from another community comes here and acknowledges the compassion of the care they have received, we come to recognize that as something special. It is unique to Reid.
From the selfless volunteers to the generous donors, the Richmond community has always been there for Reid Health. In turn, Reid has been there for Richmond, Wayne County, and the surrounding region, delivering high-quality, affordable health care to the people of East Central Indiana and West Central Ohio. Like neighbors taking care of neighbors, Reid and the Richmond-Wayne County region will continue to rely on one another for the next 100 years.